I'm Rory Bolt. I'm the CEO and founder of Proximal Data. I'm here today to talk to you about our product, AutoCache, and our company. I'd like to point out we have a PR contact, that's Beth Bryant at Market Recognition, and you can reach her for follow-up information. The agenda for my presentation, I'm going to be going over the background of our company, why I founded the company. I'm going to introduce our product. Then there'll be another section where we'll go into a deep dive for our technology and the product itself, and our new Hyper-V port of the product. And finally, a brief section on forward-looking statements on what's next. Okay, here I'm going to introduce the company. Once again, I'm Rory Bolt. I'm going to give you a little bit of my background, just because I've been in storage for a long time, had a lot of relevant experience, and it'll lend some credibility to some of the things that I say, some of the opinions that I have. So prior to founding this company, I was the CTO of Avamar for 6 years. Avamar was the original data deduplication company that was sold to EMC. It's also one of the pioneers in RAIN, or redundant arrays of independent nodes for storage scale-out. I was a technical director at Network Appliance, where I was in charge of the synchronous replication product and responsible for the architecture of the cluster mode implementation of that product, known as Metro Cluster. I did a stint at Quantum. I was actually both a vice president at Quantum and a distinguished fellow at Quantum, and co-inventor of the virtual tape library. I've done a number of startups, and I've been back in storage for some innovative products like Stacker, the original disk compression product. So I have a background in storage that goes back a little over 20 years, and other notable things along the lines was in charge of Unitry, the original tiering product for open systems and the basis for the IEEE mass storage reference model. And prior to going to storage, I actually worked in supercomputers doing vector processors and network service processors. In general, we have a very senior team at Proximal. It's almost embarrassing. I totaled up the numbers. We have over 77 years in storage in the three principles.
My kind of guys.
There you go. We do have some gray hairs here. What does that mean? Well, it means that we have developed products that have literally shipped millions of units. We've developed products that have gone on to be hundreds of millions of dollars worth of lines of business for acquiring companies. We have deep storage experience. Okay. Also listed on here, Clay Mayers. He goes back with me over 20 years, back to Stack Electronics and the original disk compression product, Stacker. Rich Pappas, who's in the room with us, our VP of Sales, another very key asset to the company. So, Proximal Data. We were founded a little over 2 years ago, almost coming up on our third anniversary at this point. We've gone through 2 rounds of financing. We had a Series A round for $3 million that closed in January of 2012. We had Series B close in March of this year. We're located in San Diego, California. And these are relatively modest amounts of venture funds for a storage company. We are, in fact, an intellectual property-based company. We develop all our own technologies, and it's all done with employees. But anything that is not germane to intellectual property, anything that is not involved in the creation of the intellectual property for the product, we try and outsource wherever possible. So
you're outsourcing Rich?
There you go. Everything that we can. We haven't been able to outsource Rich yet. So once again, marketing, financials, external test and validation. We will use third parties for all those types of features. Okay.
So are you doing the test validations then, Howard?
No comment.
All right. So with that as a backdrop, who are we? Well, we're a bunch of engineers. We are over 90% engineering, and we're sending out to resolve I/O problems, real bottlenecks, real world problems, particularly in the virtualized environments. Okay? We believe it's key to do this with full operational transparency. We're going to be coming back to that theme over and over in the presentation. We're also a very deep technical support team, and we're geared towards supporting customers and partners in the deployment of our technologies. Okay? Fair to say who we are? Who aren't we? Well, we're really not marketing juggernauts. We are engineers. Rich likes to say we're geeks. I like to say we're propeller heads. We love the technology. We struggle with marketing sometimes, and we try to be as honest as we can about that. We're also not a large end-user sales force. In fact, we're trying to leverage partnerships, VARs, and other sales channels to the fullest extent possible. So, what are the founding tenets of our company? Well, Proximal really is the culmination of a bunch of experiences that I had throughout my career. And there were some key things that led to the founding of this company. Not the least of which was the sale of Avamar to EMC. When I sold Avamar to EMC, I spent about 2 years on the road with the EMC sales force, talking to hundreds and hundreds of customers and talking about their problems and observing their data centers and trends in their data centers. And I was shocked. I have a long career in storage, and I saw that virtualization was changing the data center more quickly and more profoundly than anything I'd ever seen in my entire career. So that actually fed into the founding of this company. Wow, virtualization is taking over the data center. I want to do something around virtualization. Okay. The next sort of founding tenet was Flash. Through various projects over the years, I'd started tracking Flash back in the late 1990s and predicting a disruption to main storage at that time. And now I'm not claiming I was first or alone in that. Lots of people saw that Flash was coming. But certainly, it was clear to me that storage and storage bottlenecks in particular were one of the main inhibitors to people's ability to drive machine density in the virtualized environments. They were facing storage bottlenecks. So I have in the back of my mind, virtualization is changing the data center. Flash is going to change storage and can help with one of the main problems of virtualization, which is storage bottlenecks. Those two things start gelling together. All right. The third sort of tenet that went into the formation of this company was an observation that hypervisors were doing a great job at virtualization, and they were doing a pretty good job of management, but they managed some things much better than they managed other things. In particular, they managed CPU and memory resources very well, allowing you to set policy and pin resources to guarantee service levels. They virtualized storage very well, but they didn't really manage storage with reservations for bandwidths or guaranteeing service levels in storage. And so that was another founding tenet. The final one was, and once again, this was through that opportunity to go out and talk with hundreds and hundreds of customers in data centers, the observation that OpEx budgets were flat to declining and had been for about a decade. So this is, in fact, in my opinion, is one of the reasons why virtualization made such a quick impact and such a profound impact in the data centers. It allowed the IT staff to do more with less. The new metric they were being measured on was how many hundreds of virtual machines each individual IT staff member was responsible for, right? So ease of use, operational transparency really, really matters, right? Rip and replace didn't scale. This is, I guess, yet again, one of the lessons I learned at Avamar. At Avamar, we could do things that no other data protection product could do, but we required process change, right? We said, don't back up the way you've been backing up. Replace that process with us, and we can do amazing things, and we did. But what we found was that there was a large amount of resistance to that operational change. In fact, you could arguably say data domain was much more effective in delivering data deduplication than Avamar was, even though we were the pioneer. And I would attribute that to the fact that data domain was less disruptive to IT processes and practices than we were. I'd like to talk a little bit about the design philosophy behind our products. Shouldn't be any surprise here after what I just said. When we're designing our product, we want absolutely no disruptions to IT operations, right? And because of this, it dictated the way we would implement our solution. Guest OS agents don't scale. Customers have a lot of pushback on that, and rightly so. It becomes sort of a management and configuration and test matrix nightmare with geometric expansion there. So, in fact, we were the first company to figure out how to natively integrate inside the hypervisor to provide caching solutions. Version 1.0 of our product GA'd at VMworld in 2012, and we were the first caching solution native within the hypervisors at that point in time. Okay. So another observation is that hypervisors are, in fact, a fairly unique I/O environment, right? You have different applications that are running within different guests. Those different guests could actually even be running different operating systems, very diverse workloads, and they're aggregated together and presented down to the physical storage layers beneath them, okay? On top of that sort of a strange mix of I/O patterns, you have the notion of vMotion, the live migration of running virtual machines between hosts, where workloads can, for seemingly unknown reasons, transition on and off of a machine. It's a very dynamic environment, and as such, no single caching algorithm is ever going to be best for all workloads. And so we decided early on that we were going to use adaptive caching, dynamic feedback loops to adjust the algorithms and self-tune over time, right? And then the last thing about hypervisors as an I/O environment, it's a shared resource environment. And in a shared resource environment, you have to be aware of everything that's going on around you and all the other usages of the same storage systems. And so there's what I call the Hippocratic Oath of storage. First, do no harm. So it's great if you can accelerate storage, but if you can't accelerate storage, you want to make very sure that you aren't negatively impacting other users on I/O that you can't accelerate. The final tenets of our design philosophy, single pane of glass for management. So for all the platforms that we support, we integrate seamlessly and fully with the native management tools. So for our ESXi-based products, that's obviously a full integration with vCenter and vSphere. For our new Hyper-V-based product, that is a full integration with Microsoft System Center, okay, and the virtual machine manager within System Center. Final note on design philosophy, if I had to pick the single most important feature of virtualization, other than the ability to drive up hardware utilization, it would be vMotion. vMotion really, really matters. And having a graceful solution for vMotion in terms of minimizing performance impact for vMotion is imperative. And so we have some unique technology that allows us to pre-warm caches on destination machines for vMotion to minimize performance degradation. And to do that required us to be able to map back all the I/O and all the cached entries to the individual virtual machine that's responsible for that particular I/O or cache entry.